Hello and welcome back to the Slipstream Entrepreneurs podcast. I am Rich Wharton, your host, and I'm joined by my incredible co-host, as per usual, Hannah Brooks. Hannah, how are you today?
Very good. A bit achy after being on the bike, but yeah, all good.
Oh, amazing. How far did you go on the bike?
I was only just over 8k today, but it was enough to just get my legs stretched out.
Hey, it's 8k more than most, so great work for getting in the gym early doors and getting it done. And I'm delighted to say that we're joined by an unbelievable guest today. I'm really excited for this podcast because we've got an incredible guest, Gemma Johnston. Gemma, thank you so much for joining us.
That's a lot of pressure, that introduction. I object to the use of the term incredible. That now feels like I've got something to live up to, but hopefully I can add something useful on here today.
I forgot to mention she's modest as well. So, no. How are you today, Gemma? To start off with.
Yeah, really good. Tired. It's been a long week in the world of startup land and sports. But I'm looking forward to my Friday. Is always this one day of the week. I always say to everyone, it doesn't matter whether like you're a fellow founder, CEO, investor, whatever. I'm like, Friday afternoons, 3:00, I clock out. Like I work all the hours, I work at night, I work early in the morning. But Friday, I go climbing. I don't get to do much anymore. But 3:00 on a Friday, I'm out and I'm down the climbing wall for 4 hours. And that's like my one treat, my one personal thing every week where I get to move my body and I get to see people that aren't like work-based. So I'm counting down the hours until tomorrow.
That's amazing. Let's touch, before we hear your story, let's touch on that point, because there's a lot of people that listen to this who are entrepreneurs. There's racing drivers who just think their life is work, racing, and we in this podcast we found a strong correlation between racing drivers and entrepreneurs. Now, I know business is everything. You're trying to build a brand, you're trying to build your business, become successful, create incredible value for the people that you're serving, and effectively change the world as such, in obviously your niche. My question is, how important is it to look after yourself?
It's incredibly important. I mean, I think you're absolutely right, and that's such an important point to make, is when you're trying to start something or get something off the ground, and that doesn't matter whether you're trying to break into a particular sport as an athlete and make your mark, or whether you're starting a business, like you want to dedicate all of your time and effort to it. Like you want it to be successful, and that's both like the good and the bad side of it, right? The good side of it is that if you really love something and you're passionate about it, it doesn't feel like work. But something I talk about a lot with my co-founder is that when it doesn't feel like work is when it's incredibly easy to burn out, because you love what you do so much that you are less aware of the signs that you are getting tired and worn down. And so I think like it's incredibly cliched and everyone talks about it, but like you really have to find ways to make time for yourself. It doesn't matter. That looks different for everyone, whether that's getting up at 5:00 in the morning to have an hour to yourself with a cup of coffee, listening to a podcast, or whether, like for me, that's hitting the climbing wall once a week. I mean, I used to go 4 or 5 times a week. I don't get that much opportunity now. And I compromise that because, I have this business that I want to succeed, but I'm so aware that when I spend those hours down the wall on a Friday, it's so refreshing. Like physically, I'm moving. Mentally, I'm focusing on a whole different set of challenges. So I don't have time to think about my work. I kind of switch my phone off. And it's such a sociable sport that for those hours, I'm not just climbing. I'm talking to you and seeing other people. And generally, I'm not talking about work. And you know what? The funny thing is actually that not only is it good for your well-being, but I find that in those situations, your inspiration starts going crazy. Like when you give yourself that opportunity to step back from what you're focusing on day to day, that's when the ideas and the thoughts start to flow. And that's when you almost subconsciously resolve these problems or challenges that you've got going on day to day. So and it doesn't have to be sports, it can be anything, but just a big fan of carving out that time, making sure that you're religious about it, and also just being clear with people that you're not going to compromise it. I think times are changing, and there's a huge amount of respect for, whether that's from investors or whether it's sponsors or people kind of within your sporting environment. People they seem to have a lot more respect now for the fact that you know how to look after your own health, and you know what you need to stay fresh and fit and healthy, and that you have those boundaries and you protect that. And I think, we should all make a point of doing that.
That's special. You know, I mean, for the first 5 minutes of this podcast, we've just got some absolutely incredible advice. I mean, I think we're all guilty of it. I mean, I know I am, especially. I would do calls at all different sorts of times. Work overlaps, and there's, especially in the Zoom call era as well, when you're doing back-to-back calls and you just think, I need to fit this work in elsewhere, and you sacrifice your time. But actually, especially when you're enjoying what you do, you think, oh, I won't burn out until the point that you do burn out, and it's too late then. So I think, dedicating that time to really look after yourself. I mean, I'm a big believer of winning your morning. I learned that from one of my mentors. Get up early. I do my meditation. It's a non-negotiable. I do my gratitude, write down, non-negotiable. Aim for a cold shower. Want to do some sort of workout, etc. That's great. It kind of works for me. May not work for other people, but it is just finding some time in your day to turn around and go, right, this is my time. Before I get busy, I'm just going to take that time to chill, relax. And again, I think that getting up at 5 a.m. that people talk about, the 5 a.m. club, it doesn't necessarily need to be 5, but it's just that if most people start their day at 9, they've got an hour and a half commute, and then they need a bit of time before that as well. Actually it works back to 5 o'clock to spend an hour by yourself. And I think that's such a powerful thing. Are you a 5 a.m. riser, Gemma?
I am, but I work at 5 a.m. And, it's funny what you were saying before, because I think prevention is better than cure, right? And just to show the downside of it, I suppose, and also the fact that no one ever gets this 100% right, is before Christmas, my co-founder and I were working really, really long hours, unhealthy amount of hours, to try and get to beta testing stage for our platform. And we agreed that we would take between 2 and 3 weeks out with school holidays and Christmas. And we were like, we need a break. So, let's do this. The first week I couldn't relax. The first week I was like, I need to get on my laptop. I need to do something. I don't know what to do with myself. The second week I was just at a loss for anything to do. And I felt pretty emotional. And then it was only in the third week that I started to relax, which was roughly when we were kind of coming back to our laptops to start again. And it took us a good week to 2 weeks in January to really get back in the rhythm of things. And I think looking back at it, we were close to burning out. We were getting in that uncomfortable territory, right? That we were tired, we were exhausted. And seeing the impact that had on us just made me feel like we have to go into this new year doing something different, So for me personally, I mean, my co-founder is different. He likes working at night. I like working really early in the morning. I'm incredibly lucky. I don't have a family. I don't have any of those kind of personal responsibilities that prevent me doing that. So I can wake up at 5 o'clock. I can make myself a cup of coffee, take my laptop to bed for a couple of hours before the day really starts. And that works for me. My my compromise for myself is that by about 7 o'clock in the evening, unless I've got a very particular deadline to hit, I'll switch off. I'll take a couple of hours for myself in the evening. I don't care what I do. That's my balance. Like I said, my co-founder will work at night time and he'll quite happily do that, but he prefers to have relaxed time in the morning. He takes his kid to school, so we have different routines. We meet in the middle somewhere, but it's like you say, it doesn't have to be 5 a.m. It's finding what works for you. What are your patterns? When are you most effective? And what keeps you balanced so that you're not just working 24/7.
Great
Amazing.
advice. Yeah, really great advice. I think that's the sort of thing that we try and tell drivers is to kind of, firstly, to diversify themselves as people. Secondly, to try and just work with their strengths, because they've all got their own strengths, and it's not just driving quick. It could be some form of PR or social media that they particularly do, which is really good. And I just think, just work to your own strengths and strategies, and really lean into that, because I think when we start to do that, we see some really cool stuff happen. Only when you start to try and behave like other people, you don't tend to see any kind of results from that, I think.
I think it's as much about downtime as well, though. Like, really something that's diversionary. Like, I think about the fact that, just take every time you see Daniel Ricciardo in off-season, he's doing something active, but it's not like racing cars. He might be on motorbikes, quad bikes, whatever, but he's doing something that's fun, different, like really gives himself an opportunity to kind of unwind and relax, right? And I know I was talking to London Lions basketball team, and they have started to build up a relationship with Saracens Rugby Club, where the players will, go and hang out and play with each other and go and see each other's matches, and just kind of doing things to discover another sport that isn't the thing that it's not the thing they need to make money from. It's not the thing that they're competing in. They don't have to be good at it. It's something to enjoy, right? Which we're all about in terms of our business and our platform. Is sport shouldn't be for for the vast majority of people, sport shouldn't be because you need to be good at it or you need to compete or you need to get fit. Like, at the core of it should be fun. If you happen to be good at it and you happen to be competitive and you happen to then get really ripped from it, like, those are all happy byproducts. But when you're an athlete and that's your journey, you're focusing on the wrong thing. You're always focusing on your goals and your achievements and what's the future state. Where do I want to be? That gold medal, that championship, whatever. So I think it's so important for that downtime and for relaxation to draw it back to what sport should be, which is for fun and diversionary and an ability to play.
You know what? I'm going to take that away myself, because that's exactly my sort of issue, is that, especially being so passionate about motorsport, spend a lot of time watching motorsport as well as working in the in the sector, in the industry. I love doing business. I love concentrate. It's like a game to me. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's blooming stressful. Don't get me wrong, but it is incredible. That's what I enjoy doing. And I think for me, it's like actually try and do something completely different, like as in completely different. And I decided to look at beekeeping. I'm actually reading a book at the moment about the Bible of beekeeping. Really random. Just thought, you know what, perked my interest. I'll have a read of it. And I'm already thinking of business ideas for this. And I think, no, like the whole point was not to be a business. It was more to be, a break from stuff, being in nature, being away from, concentrate, providing good in the world. And, bees are so important to, apparently, if all the bees died and became extinct, the human population will be extinct within 4 years. That blew my mind. Like, I did not know that, but Hey, there we go. That's enough about bees. So
No, but
Gemma, we actually haven't heard your. We've had 15 minutes and we haven't heard your story. I would love to hear about your background, where you came from, and obviously what you're doing now as well.
So I suppose I have kind of two stories that intertwine, because I have like my professional story, which is like, how did I end up at a point of a startup professionally, like my skills and experience. So I then have like this interwoven story, which is like my personal life, which is sport, and discovering that a lot later in life. So like, my professional background is really varied, and I was one of those people that kind of left school. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was fairly intelligent at school. I didn't apply myself as much as I should have done, because the thing about being both somewhat intelligent but also a bit of a generalist, I think, is that you just get bored very quickly. Like you like a challenge, and once you're good enough at it, you don't have to be an expert, but once you're good enough, it's like you need the next challenge, which isn't really how school works, because it's about getting better and better and better at a subject, right? So school didn't really work for me. I didn't go to university because I just didn't know, like, what was the point in spending all that money to go somewhere and have absolutely no idea what I wanted to learn or to do. So I went out to work. I started off in retail, visual merchandising, realized that the world of like customer experience didn't really float my boat. I ended up in call centers and offices, and then eventually I think I started to find a bit of a path where I was working in marketing and communications. Really loved that, did that for a few companies. But again, I was like, I don't feel fulfilled. Like, I'm not going home thinking like I've really made an impact today, or I've done something that feels really meaningful. I then just by accident ended up in like tech. First doing project management and then business analysis. And I enjoyed the challenge of building tech products, because although it's a bit of a cycle, like every project is so different. So for the first time, like I found something that I didn't lose that interest super quick. There was enough of a challenge, like continuously, to keep me interested. But yeah, on a professional level, like about 2 years ago, I just got to a point. I'd been with the same company for 4 years, the longest I'd ever been with, a company. And I was like, I need to do something else. And so I'd had, this intertwining journey with sport, where I was at a stage of wanting to kind of work within the sport industry, or I saw this opportunity for change, where there were like so few women participating in different sports. And I was like, I feel like there must be a way that I can kind of marry up my career experience with like my personal passion. And I came at it as a girl who hated sport at school. Like, I was a chubby kid, and I always say this, I talk about this with customers, with investors. Like, I absolutely hated sport. If I was forever forgetting my PE kit and my swimming costume, because like I didn't want to participate. I was too chubby to like run around a field. And the irony of it is that if I'd participated more, I would have probably been less chubby and then fitter, and so there's a cycle. But at school, you've got like these traditional sports, and I didn't enjoy those either. I wasn't a netball girl. The one team sport that I did like was hockey, but no one in my year group liked hockey, so that quickly got taken off the curriculum. I didn't want to run around a field doing laps or hurdles. So I spent all of my childhood kind of like hating sport. And then at 19, I just randomly went along to a snowboarding lesson at my dry ski slope. And I suddenly fell in love. I was like, there's a sport where I can be individual. I can wear baggy clothes, so it doesn't matter like what I look like. and I was terrible at it. Like, it wasn't like I found snowboarding and I was like, suddenly I found a sport that I was good at. On the dry slope, which is notoriously like difficult, it took me about a year to be able to link my turns in a way that like I could make my way down the hill without falling over. But I just enjoyed it. There was something I loved about it that made me want to keep going back. And I would, like 3-4 times a week, I would be down the dry slope, even in the heat of summer, in like my trousers and like my hoodies. And then that kind of led to trying surfing, because I was like, oh, board sports, this is fun. Surfing, paddleboarding, mountain biking, climbing, like even ended up throwing myself out of a plane. Would I do that again? Probably not.
Sure.
Yeah, not just, I'm still here, it's fine. But it opened up like a world of sports that I didn't know about as a child, and things that could be really interesting. But there were also, always so few women taking part in these things. Like when I started out snowboarding, I was probably one of about 3 girls down my local dry slope, compared to like tens or hundreds of guys there. And so there was always this underlying feeling of like, something needs to change, and like, this is something I can do to kind of influence this. And that's where the two things collided. Literally about a year and a half ago, I just, over coffee and a conversation with an old friend, I made this decision, like, just think it's time to quit. I think it's time to take this leap and see what happens. The seedlings of an idea for She Is Action, our business, had sort of just like had been forming. And in the space of a week, I did. I quit my job, sold my house, sold my camper van, and just decided, let's give this a go,
Wow. That's a leap of faith. That is, it's like sell up and go for it. But I mean, tell us more about, obviously what you're trying to achieve. What is the ultimate goal with obviously your business now?
So, when we started out, we do, there's a lot of publicly available research on women's sports and barriers to participation, and like, for anyone who's listening who doesn't know, like some of the more impactful statistics that we always talk about are the fact that 1 in 2 teenage girls will drop out of sport. That's still true. Apparently, even the situation might be deteriorating. And I think This Girl Can campaign found that there was what they call an enjoyment gap of 2.4 million. Fewer women than men will actually say that they enjoy sport. So, like, there's loads of research out there about the problem in sports as far as women are concerned, but also the barriers that exist, of which, they're numerous. So we spent weeks and weeks trawling through publicly available research. We ran our own surveys, interviewed women, and effectively came up with 3 areas that we felt were key areas, that, like, 3 barriers that were preventing women from participating regularly in sport. Lack of a support network was one. Not really kind of knowing where to start was another. And this like fear of looking silly, effectively, like not wanting to be the beginner in an environment where you feel like people are like a lot better than you. So we kind of focused on those things, and as I said, kind of was forming a bit of a vision for a hub, like a destination, a platform that women could go to and build their confidence and find information. And so it took us like several months. We had a branding expert come on board. We had a UX designer come and help us. And we formed this idea for a platform where we could use algorithms to create like a personalized ecosystem where women onboard themselves. It's very much like a kind of social media type platform. You have a profile, and we connect you to other women, businesses, and content, all based on your location, the sports you're interested in, and kind of the level that you're at as well. So the more you interact with the platform, the more we can learn about you, the more we can point you in the direction of places and sports that you might want to go and investigate, and products that might be useful to you, and people, communities, groups that align with you and the sorts of sports that you're interested in. So it was really always intended as a network, effectively. Think of it as falling somewhere between the broader heights of like Facebook, which is very generic, and the lower levels of community and groups, which is obviously very specified in terms of like a particular sport. Somewhere in between that, we're a kind of umbrella that filters everything sporting and brings it together and points you in the direction of everything that would be useful to you.
Makes me very happy. It's such a required thing, I think, these days. And me and Gemma have spoken about this at length before, and kind of I've echoed the fact that I didn't have very many kind of opportunities in sport when I was like younger, and I think there's so much to be done still in sport, I think. And we've spoken about this in motorsport is exactly the same. And yeah, I think there's so many amazing people who want to make this change happen that something will happen, and it's going to take these amazing projects coming to life and to see that real change. And I'm so here for it. So here for it.
There's so many women's groups, communities, businesses. Take Women in Waves, for example, all about women's courses, women's lessons, getting women together on retreats. Women's Sport Trusts are doing a lot of work in the area of kind of like research as a non-profit. There's community, like, hiking groups, mountaineering groups. It's great. They all exist. They're all doing really good work. Now you want them to be found, because at the moment they're being found by the women who have the confidence to find them and check them out. But what you want them to do is be found by a broader group of women who feel able to build their confidence enough to go right. So it's like converting those extra women, creating all the connections so that, the research shows that women overthink a lot more than men do. There was a big brain imaging study that happened, I think, back in 2018. And they found there were two particular areas of women's brains that light up much more than men's, which effectively, I am not even going to try to go into the scientific details, but says that women overthink situations far more than men. And if you translate that, really, it means that while men will still feel a fear about doing something, they'll kind of just ignore it and then go and do it anyway if they want to do it enough. Whereas women, even though you might have a real desire to go climbing or karting for the first time, but your fears about how terrible you might look, or will there be anyone there like me? Will there even be any facilities for me as a woman? Like, you start to overthink those things, and very quickly you go, I'm not going to bother. Like, that's the outcome. So if you can create that community feel and those connections, then we can start to talk more and have those conversations. And really, it's about creating more of a support network. People talk of it in terms of like mentoring and buddying. When you know people like you who are interested in the same things and want to do the same things, it gives you a huge amount of courage to get out and try.
I think it's also a great opportunity to show other sports. I think especially at school, we're very good at showing you the main sports.
Yeah.
But like you said, Gemma, is like you tried snowboarding, then that led you on to surfing, which led you on to, mountain biking, and and then that led you to climbing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've me growing up, again, the challenges like that women have, and the difference with men, I just threw myself at any sport. Like, if it was sport, I was in. Like, I don't care what it was, I was in. Like, it was a yes. And I had a feeling that was good at most sports, but not excelling at one in particular. But my thing is that thing of showing people the sports that no one really knows of. You know, there's so many incredible sports out there, and again, especially those who allow mixed like competition. There is so much out there that people can join together, come together. It's great networking, like you've said already. It's great to mix with people. It's a relaxation. Yes, there's a competitive nature, but it doesn't have to be competitive all the time as such. It doesn't. You don't necessarily have to play sport because of you want to win. You play sport for the fun of it. So, are you incorporated in your platform? You know, showcasing different sports, what people can get involved in, and how they can start that journey.
Absolutely. I mean, part of the personalization for us, which we're working on, is over time we will start to build profiles of people effectively. I think there's a really interesting thing here from a business perspective is around data integrity, because we've always been very clear that we don't want. So we're a for-profit business, and the reason we did that is because we think it is it's possible to build profit for good businesses, but B, we don't want to take grants and charitable donations away from communities and businesses that like really need it, right? So we're like, there's a way of building a business model that allows us to make profit, but then invest that kind of back into sport and use that in a way that feels like it's growing and benefiting the industry. But so we never really wanted to compromise the integrity of users' data. But data is really important because the more we can learn about you as a user, the more we can personalize that journey, which also means that eventually when there's enough people using it, we can say, actually, women like you who like surfing also tend to have an interest in water polo, which you might never have, thought to explore. So we can start to find ways to expand those networks out and suggest things that might be kind of attractive to people and give them the opportunity to, like, where's a taster session? Where's a community? Where's someone else who does this? Can I ask them a question like, what happened the first time you went to water polo? Like, were you good at it? And kind of just backtracking to what you said before about the nature of like competition within sport. I always say that I probably shouldn't swear on this podcast. I'm terrible at everything that I do. I mean, at best with snowboarding, I'm kind of average. Depending on who you speak to and pit me against, I might be considered slightly above average. But I'm in no way amazing at it. It's probably because I've been doing it for 20 years. Climbing, I'm okay at. Surfing, I am just always trying my best not to drown. I was so petrified of skydiving that I thought I would throw up after the parachute deployed. And skateboarding, I'm always just trying to avoid needing full body skin grafts. Like, that is the extent of my abilities, my sporting abilities. But so it's not about having to be good. It's not about necessarily needing to be competitive. It's about finding something you love. How can you find the thing you love if you never start in the first place? Like, there has to be this point that you say, I'm going to have a go. I'm going to be brave enough to have a go. And you might not like it, but it's more a feeling of, I want to do this again, rather than like, I feel like I need to be good at it. Like, I always liken it to the fact that, we encourage people to carve out time in their day for sport or in their week for sport. But I think it should be more that you love something so much, you always feel that you can never find enough time in your week for it. Right? That's the subtle difference. is feeling like you're constantly chasing it and want to do it, as opposed to I should really make time to go to the gym. And if the gym thighs you up, that's absolutely fine. But like we always tell people, like, that's how you keep fit. Go to the gym, go running. If you don't like it, well, what's the point?
100%. 100%. No, I mean, I know that from my personal training days, as it were. But it's that thing of going. If you don't like doing something, don't do it. You're not gonna see it out if you're not enjoying it. You've got to find something that, like you said, really fires you up. And whether you're good, bad, or indifferent, it doesn't matter. Go and enjoy yourself. Just have fun. Put a smile on your face. Get moving. I mean, it's easy in theory.
Absolutely. And also I think, like, just because I think it's really important to call this out from a female perspective, is also not feeling like you have to compromise. I know a lot of people are still surprised by this, and some women even, but there seems to be this pivotal point for young women where they feel they have to choose in it. Like, sport maybe is about being dirty or sweaty or tomboyish to a point. That's kind of the way that we look at it for girls, even to the point where I've had conversations with women that, like, they were encouraged to give up football maybe when they were young because it was a boys' sport. And I've spoken to women who do things like rugby, for example, and they've turned up with a full face of makeup on and kind of been pulled up on it. Like, why would you turn up with makeup? But also, why wouldn't you? It isn't like, I think for women you can be whatever you want to be, but sometimes it feels like there's a pressure to look or behave in a certain way, right? But if you want nice nails and you want to turn up in a full face of makeup, do it. There's no reason why those two things can't go hand in hand. I can never have nice nails because when I climb they get destroyed on the wall. But it's a compromise I make. I've never been a particularly girly girl, but I do like to look nice, and I will, before I go to the wall. Like, I know there's going to be people there. Even if I've had a day where I've been working in my pajamas, I'll still put on some eyeliner and I'll still do my eyebrows because I want to look nice. It's not about what anyone else thinks of me, but it's what I think of myself. And I just kind of, it's just such an important point to make. It has nothing to do with anything, but really in the terms of, like, whether the things, the barriers that put women off of sport and trying other things, one of those things can be, for some women, this compromise they feel they have to make on whether they look nice or whether they behave in what they deem to be like a feminine or a girly kind of way. And there was this whole kind of maybe low level uproar, but like with Charlotte Tilbury sponsoring Formula One Academy, it's like there were a lot of women that didn't like the fact that overtly we were putting lipstick on a car. But when there are so many girls that feel they have to compromise their femininity in order to participate, like that it's some sort of choice, I think it's a really important thing to lean into, this idea that you can be both. You can be competitive and aggressive, and you can play rugby and be sweaty and dirty, but you can still look nice and feel nice. You can still be a woman.
I mean, yeah. What more can I say? Like, it's such a hot topic at the minute, especially in motorsport. Don't think we should probably go into that subject. I don't know, but it's very much women are really wanting to be heard, like, massively, and want to be recognised for their input and for who they are and all of this sort of stuff. So I think the more we can lean into these things, I think the better. I think any kind of avoidance is just counterintuitive, I think, for everybody. And not just women, right? I think for men, those kind of like allies to this it's really powerful for them.
I don't, let's not go into the politics, but I think if we do say one thing about Formula One and maybe like more recent news and situations is that, you know, I always admire the fact that Susie Wolff as a figure who's really recognizable and at the helm of Formula One Academy, but also, if you will, a big influence within motorsports. She doesn't shy away from the issues that surround women, and I find that really interesting because quite a number of years ago she did an interview where she actually said, like, I don't see myself as some kind of female role model, and I don't think that there should be a difference between men and women in sport. And actually, in her position, you really see this journey where she's embraced that over the last few years, and this status that she has gives her this ability to maybe change things for women within motorsports. And so yesterday, for her to announce that she was taking legal action off the back of accusations made against her, I think it was like pre-Christmas. Between that and her partnership with Charlotte Tilbury, I just think she's making some really interesting movements within the sport to show we're here and we're going to be taken seriously. And I think, as I said, kind of trying not to get too political in terms of like motorsport, but I think that's a really good thing, particularly for Formula One and the pinnacle of the industry.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think what Susie Wolff is doing. I mean, it's funny actually. Both Hannah and I turned around and said, like, Hannah asked me the question first. She said, with this podcast, who would you like to have on? And this is the first episode that we ever did. She said, who would be your dream guest? And I turned around and said, look, originally I was going to say Toto Wolff, because what he's done has been incredible. However, one person better than Toto Wolff would 100% be Susie Wolff, because of what the movement she's doing. I mean, don't get me wrong, and I'm not taking anything away from Toto. He's done amazing work at Mercedes and throughout his career. But Susie, on the other hand, not only done amazing work throughout her career, but the lives she is now impacting from the work that she's doing, the changes she's making in not only elite level sport, but all the way down, and actually is setting an example for all sports, not just motorsport, but all sports around the world, and encouraging more women to partake in sport, normalising women's partaking in sport, but just allowing people to have a platform where they really can just be themselves, enjoy themselves, and actually bring in business in as well. Let's not take that away from her. She's an entrepreneur in herself, but bringing other businesses, making it a playing field for everyone, which is utterly incredible.
But I think she has, like, in our side of the business, we talk a lot about, like, what does it mean to be a woman nowadays? And I think, look, as someone who, like, obviously clearly doesn't know Susie Wolff, but, like, as an outsider looking in, she brings this boldness, almost a sort of fierceness to what she does and to the industry, but with a softness that shows that she's still a woman, that she's not trying to be a man in a man's world. She is very much trying to be a woman, and she carries herself well. And, she comes across as such a great role model. I think it feels like in our time, we couldn't have had someone better to push the boundaries for us in motorsport and, like lift girls up within Formula One.
Definitely.
100%. Well, Gemma, we really, really appreciate your time, and obviously you are incredibly busy at the moment, so I don't want to take up too much longer of your time, but we do always finish on one question, and I absolutely love this question. But if you could spend an hour with anyone, whether they're alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Like I want to say Susie Wolf, and then I feel like we've talked about her for like 10 minutes. So I'm like, I think maybe I'm just a big fan of the Wolves, but I'd really like to spend some time with Toto. And that's no disrespect to Susie, because obviously I have just banged on about like how amazing I think she is. But in the interests of like giving you a slightly different answer, I think, Toto has this, he works with Harvard Business School. He clearly has he's business minded. He understands how to build a brand, a team. Like, I've listened to some of his thoughts on leadership before. I think the way he navigates being a public figure, it always seems very respectful. I'm gonna try not to name other teams, but there are other team principals and other teams that I feel are more about like destroying the competition, right? Whereas I think it always feels to me from Mercedes' side, and I feel like it's very much led from the top somewhat from Toto, is more about fairness and competition, but in a more friendly sense. I feel like the way that he manages things, I feel like I could just stand to learn so much from him, and hopefully also then get like an audience with Susie as well. So like kill two wolves with one stone.
Yeah, I love that. Two wolves with one stone. Just have dinner with them both. That's just problem solved. No, Gemma, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute blast. I think this has been our longest podcast to date, longest episode. So it just shows how much value that you're providing. And there's even some bits that we talked about off air that I haven't even made it in, and I just think, oh no, I wish we could just add those in. But my biggest thing is it'll be great at some point in the future to have you back on, maybe when you're further down the journey, and you can again talk about more things that we can really help and how we can impact the world, which you're doing amazing at anyway. But just before you go, where can people reach you? Where can people find out more about you and what you're doing?
So you can head over to www.sheisaction.com.
Amazing. I'll put that in the description as well, so then everyone has access to that. They can get on that very, very quickly. But Gemma, thank you so much for your time. Hannah, thank you. I'm so grateful for you every single day. So thank you for what you do as well. Thank you to the listeners, and I hope everyone has a great day and great rest of the week. Take care.